who had a newborn in this past July and has 3 other children, is also affected by this crisis. We are currently cramped in the half of my home that is livable, while the other half remains gutted and uninhabitable. Adding to this burden, I also faced the threat of water disconnection while I was displaced, which compounded my stress. Months after the incident on September 9th, a customer service assurance specialist reached out to me via email, identifying herself as my point of contact to expedite my concerns. She informed me that the sewer department was en route to clean the lines outside my home, apologized for the experience and inconvenience, and provided me a claims form for submission. However, there are issues with this response. The city had already flushed the lines outside my home on July 31st, the day after the incident, and I received a claims form in person the same night, close to midnight. Additionally, I received an electronic copy from Mr. Sims several weeks later. Given all the challenges and how the incident was handled, both on the day it happened and in the days following, this delayed response felt dismissive. It seems as though someone should have informed the specialist of these prior actions before she contacted me.
Ms. Forrest, what we're going to do, I'm going to have the attorneys answer. Do we have any update on this claim of settlement? Or can we look into this claim of settlement and speak with Ms. Forrest before she leaves today and give her, can we refer her to someone today before she goes home? I don't want her to be able to leave right now before she gets home to make sure that she can get this stuff.
Sure. Roger Van Dar, Law Department. I'll get her the phone number of the claims manager.
I've already spoken with Ms. Burns and Mr. Williams.
Okay. Well, those are the individuals who.
That's why I'm here today, because of the responses from Mr. Williams, Ms. Burns, Mr. Woods, Mr. Magby, Mr. Sims. I could go on and on with names of superintendents, city officials, managers.
Can Ms. Amber Robinson help her, or can someone?
No, I'll speak to their supervisor and see if there's something.
Well, can we do it today?
I will speak to their supervisor today. Yes.
And
I just need to get
Ms. Forrest, where do you live exactly, Ms.
I
Forrest?
live on Santa Fe Trail in Southwest Atlanta.
Okay, so that's
11.
That's Councilmember Boone, Councilmember Overstreet's district.
Yes, I reached out to her and sent her a detailed email with the details, and you as well, Mr. Lewis.
And we're going to work on it the day before you leave. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
After the meeting today, we're going to make sure we can get you some help. Thank you again.
Thank you.
The next speaker would be Ms. Adrienne Coleman Tyler.
Good morning. I am here today to, again, speak to the public access channel, which has been in black for 17 months now. And during that time, yes, I understand. I was at the work session. I understand that the mayor has a blue ribbon panel that is commissioned to give him a proposal, a report sometime in December, and it's going to go to his desk. And then I guess the mayor will make some decision as to how it moves forward. So I'm here today to ask Atlanta City Council a few questions. Number one, just in terms of process to begin with, there's a report that's going to the mayor that I hope will be public. I hope that the commission or the mayor's representatives will can advise you as well as the public. Will that report be posted? The recommendations be posted on a website? Also, will there be a period for public comment to that report such that the public can come in and review those recommendations and add their comment? Because quite honestly, there has not been really any what I consider real engagement, community engagement about this. Most people don't know what's happening. So I would like for this committee, I know most of you may be rolling off at the beginning of the year, but I would like City Council to take on the community engagement, the transparency of this, such that the report is public and that you guys take on that there will be a time and space for public comment and for people to be able to make their recommendations. Next, what I'd like to talk about is, as the presentation will indicate, there is going to be a temporary makerspace open at a city facility over near the Georgia Tech campus. And while I understand that this was a quick fix, but what I also understanding is that will probably be the temporary hub for a year, possibly up to a year. So I'm here today to advocate that there should be some investment in community media on the south side of Atlanta. Why the city picked this particular location? Is it data-driven? I think it should go to those communities that are of the most need. Where are those communities where children could really benefit from a community media center and access to digital technology, as well as communities that could really benefit with workforce development that could be created as part of this program. So thank you for your time today. I look forward to the presentation today, but also I hope that you will engage and have some questions in terms of where do we go from here. Thank you.
Ms. Tyler, I want to say thank you so much for that. And we try to be as engaged as possible as a utilities committee this year on that. It's been one of our priorities to fix whatever is going on with the public safety. Councilmember Boone hosted a listening session, a communication town hall not too long ago over at CT Martin's that was very well attended. And today, I know we're at the meeting today because I was adamant about making sure we got a report from the Blue Ribbon Commission. So transparency will be key on this, and we'll continue to make sure transparency is a part of this. You've added 2 things to it to make sure there's another public comment session. We'll make sure that. I didn't know anything about I'm learning a little bit more about the Georgia Tech specific that you mentioned, because I know as a council person, I've put studios in my recreation centers and in my high schools. And so on the south side, that's Roselle Fan, Pittman Park, Dunbar, and also South Atlanta High School. So they all have the capabilities to do this already. So we're hopeful we can tap in and use those resources as well. But thank you again for today.
Thank you.
Those are our 2 speakers for public comment. We've also been joined by Councilmember Andrea Boone. If the committee will allow, I would like to first adopt the agenda. It's been moving probably second. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Second, can we have a motion to approve the minutes? This is moving probably second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
The committee, if the committee is okay with it, we'd like to move forward with our consent agenda, move that in front of the presentations, and I'll make a motion that we do that.
Mr. Chair, no motion is needed. We will take our legislative items due to the sake of losing a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you.
This takes us to our consent agenda. Section G, ordinance for first reading. Item number 1, 24-0-1630. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2025 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $161,438,629.97 to anticipate and appropriate the transfer of liquidity to the Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund and for other purposes. Item number 2, 24-0-1631, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into the 6th Amendment to the agreement listed herein, Green Infrastructure and Landscape Services with ECL RAC Joint Venture on behalf of the Department of Public Works, to acknowledge a change in joint venture ownership and to acknowledge that no assignment and assumption is needed for the agreement, to amend the effective date of the first renewal option under the agreement to be a term of 1 year retroactively effective from September 15, 2024 through September 14, 2025 to ratify services provided under the agreement retroactively effective from September 16, 2024 through the execution of the renewal notice to add funds to the agreement in the amount not to exceed $1,500,000.00. All contract work we charge to and pay from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
So move.
Mr. Chair, no action needed. This takes us to our regular agenda. Section H, ordinance for second reading. Mr. Chair, if there is no objection from the committee, can we take items number 3 and 4 together?
Please do.
Item number 324-01595, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2025 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $30,000.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriation and add funds to the sanitary sewer repairs project and for other purposes. Item number 424-01596, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2025 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of blank to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the Custer Avenue Multi-Benefit Capacity Relief Project and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, the department requested that these items be held.
Second. It's moving properly second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. These items are held in committee. Item number 5, 2401597, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to waive the competitive source selection provisions contained in Section 2-1187 of Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, as well as any other conflicting code provision to execute the First Amendment to a cooperative agreement listed herein, utilizing the source well contract number listed herein with the United Rentals Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Public Works to extend the term of the agreement of a period of 12 months, retroactively effective from August 28, 2024 through August 27, 2025, an amount not to exceed $125,000.00 to ratify services rendered in connection with the cooperative agreement with United Rentals Incorporated as agreement listed herein, utilizing the source well contract number listed herein beginning August 28, 2024 through the execution of the First Amendment and for other purposes.
Second. It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote. Moved by Councilmember One, second by myself.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 6, 2401611, an ordinance by Councilmember Mark Julian Bond to amend ordinance 2401456 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on September 16, 2024 and approved per operation of law per City Charter Section 2-403 on September 17, 2024 to add the Sugar Creek Basin Outfall and Trunk Replacement Project in the scope of work of the agreement and for other purposes.
Second. Moved improperly second, moved by Councilmember One, second by myself. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 7, 2401612, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond authorizing the mayor or his designee, including the chief sustainability officer, to accept the grant funds from the U.S. Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, an amount not to exceed $528,330.00 for the purpose of implementing energy efficient and conservation programs in historically underserved communities in the City of Atlanta, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2025 Intergovernmental Grant Fund and to anticipate and appropriate grant funds, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into agreements to accept the grant and implement the grant project with the U.S. Department of Energy and grant subrecipients and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, this item will need to be substituted. The substitute as the account information.
It's been moving properly second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote. And do you want to speak now?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
Mr. One.
Is there someone from the department who can speak to this? Good morning. Is there a microphone on? So this obviously was, if I'm reading the legislation right, this is to fund some recommendations that came from a previous study. I'm just curious as to what that looks like. What are the actual implementation activities that are going to be covered under this grant? Now that we've received it?
This is the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, so it is formula funding from the Department of Energy. And we worked for about 8 to 10 months on putting our program implementation plan together. So we are focusing on Data management, so a sample set of about 10 to 15 of our facilities. We are adopting a new data management platform so we can better manage our municipal utility use across buildings. So that's one of the projects. And then 3 of the other projects will focus on the Wellness Center and doing an audit on the Wellness Center. As it is time for the city to update its sustainable building ordinance, we will be using this project and funds for the Wellness Center to take a look at the Wellness Center and look at other certifications. So right now, our sustainable building ordinance solely focuses on LEED, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. As we get ready for an update, we want to continue to certify buildings because that is really important to make sure we're meeting our goals, but we want to open that up a little bit. So we will be looking at Fitwell certification, potentially well building certification that incorporates health and wellness in addition to the energy, water, and resource efficiency. The second project that we will be working on is with the municipal market. So we have funding to do a full energy assessment of the municipal market. As our urban agriculture and food systems team was working with the municipal market, we understand that, their utility bills are like $60,000 a month, super crazy, but there's a lot of refrigeration. So we'll be doing a full audit on the municipal market, coming up with a list of recommendations, and have some funding through this grant to support implementing some of those recommendations.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little surprised, but reading the legislation and the background on it, that it's more about our city buildings than it is about actually helping residents or homeowners in these communities. But I guess
that was an intentional choice for the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant funds. I made that decision specifically because we need money for our municipal building stock as well. We have over 200 buildings that have a long backlog of deferred maintenance, and our needing to keep up with our sustainable building ordinance and our commercial energy efficiency benchmarking ordinance includes our municipal buildings. So we have a number of other funding opportunities that we've allocated to community-wide work.
I'm supportive of this. While I have you up here, though, I do want to raise a flag. It's somewhat it's not related to this, but it is related to the work you're doing. I understand that we are putting in electric vehicle chargers in our parking decks, which is great, but then I understand we're also going to be charging people to use them, a fee, which I think kind of isn't that counter what we should be doing as a city in terms of promoting and getting towards our sustainability goals. That may be a deemed conversation, but I just want to raise that flag, and maybe you and I can take that offline, because I just fundamentally disagree with that approach. So
yeah, appreciate that background. We're looking at a couple of different scenarios to manage the charging. One, if you notice, especially during the legislative session, we have a lot more people. We do not have enough charging for city employees. We have a number of city employees who are transitioning to electric vehicles. So we've got to kind of figure out, is there some particular, like with your ID badge that you're able to scan for city employees. So a couple of things still need to be worked on that. Revenue sharing that we are working with DEEM and the EV company about, and the executive office as well.
I
Yeah.
guess if you're going to pay to park in our deck, I don't feel like you should then again pay again to be able to charge your vehicle. But
I feel the same. As someone who has to charge their electric vehicle not at home, because I'm one of 20% of people who can't charge at home because I live in a multifamily building, it is a barrier and something we'll have to continue to address.
we totally digress, but I'll pick that up with you later. Move to approve on substitute, Mr. Chair.
Second. It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. This takes us to item number 8, 24-01627. An ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet to waive Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 1, Section 2-910, to retroactively authorize and ratify the City of Atlanta's submission of a grant application to the Johns Hopkins University of Bloomberg Center for the Public Innovation Bloomberg American Sustainable Cities Program on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience to accept the BASE Program Grant Award of the services of an innovation team for the purposes of developing an innovation strategy and a citywide vision for driving progress at the intersection of racial wealth equity and climate action to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into any necessary agreements with project partners and for other purposes.
It's been moved properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
And before you proceed,
The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
before we move forward, Ms. Forrest, we have the deputy over litigation, Mr. Torrey Smith. He's in the back. He's waiting to help you, and that's for Ms. Normika Forrest, who is Ms. Forrest already left. Okay, so we'll keep going. I'll walk outside to see if someone has a phone number for her or anything. But please proceed.
This takes us to Section I, Resolutions. Item number 924R 4448, a resolution by Councilmember Jason H. Winston authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for design build services Phase 2 with Ruby Collins Benchmark Joint Venture, LLC, on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term for Phase 2 to commence from the date a notice to proceed is issued for a period of blank calendar days for a substantial completion and blank calendar days from a notice to proceed for a final completion in amount not to exceed blank dollars. All contract work we charge to and pay from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, the department requests that this item be held.
Moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held in committee. Item number 1024R 4451, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute agreements for security guard services with Thorpe Building Services and All-in-One Joint Venture and OS Atlanta Joint Venture on behalf of the Departments of Watershed Management, Parks and Recreation, Public Works, and Transportation for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in the amount not to exceed $44,981,822.67, subject to expressly contingent upon the adoption of the FY 2026 and 2027 budgets. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, this item will need to be amended. The amendment attaches the IPRO report.
It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item has been amended.
It's been moving properly second. Moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended. Mr. Chair, this legislation should be forwarded to FEC after CUC's recommendation as it supports multiple departments.
Second. Moved and properly second.
One moment. The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item has been referred to FEC. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items. We can continue on to our presentations.
Please do. So first presentation.
Mr. Chair, the first presentation will be the Department of Public Works.
Excited to get this one. I got a call this morning from a council member over in East Point talking about how good the breezeway, the bridge looks going into East Point. And so it's a good thing. Called me about 8 a.m. this morning after seeing folks cleaning up Cleveland Avenue. So I'm excited about this report.
Most assuredly. To this committee members, recognizing Committee Chairman Lewis, I am Kentori Garman, the Interim Commissioner for the Department of Public Works, delivering our quarterly report covering July through September. But there may be some significant wins that I share along the way that we've had through October and November that I think would be appropriate to share in this meeting. Moving forward, we want to call out some of the priorities and accomplishments of the department vis-a-vis projects. Our Fleet Command Center build-out, which was for fleet services. Some of you had the opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting now over a year ago for our command center specific to solid waste services and special operations. We have duplicated that effort successfully in fleet services and hired the resources accordingly in that area. Our John C. Burdine build out for our suite relocation project. Our suite team is now housed in that location along with our QA/QC officers as well. Our AssetWorks integration, this is the operational software specific to our fleet services. And we're currently still in the process of implementing our routing software, Rubicon, about 75% of the way through, holding off on optimization at this time, and consistently working on Atlanta beautification projects, the fleet ride share program, and our fleet right sizing initiatives. Proud to say that starting out with 58 positions in fleet, down to 4 to date. Moving forward, getting a little bit more specific into the data, we'll start out with our QA/QC inspections and our contract evaluation score. Average evaluation scores for Ed Castro Landscape and COA, City of Atlanta internal right-of-way crews, were above passing at 70% throughout the quarter. Our Ed Castro contract was suspended vis-a-vis August. We are now back into partnership and relationship with Ed Castro. Our COC, our City of Atlanta internal right-of-way crews assumed responsibility for all collector and arterial roads throughout August. It is our belief and proven in our evaluations that there's no greater resource nor better contributor than the solid waste worker. So therefore, we have moved to reduce our dependency on contractors, still maintaining that partnership and relationship, but we see that our own workers, through proper training and investment, can do the work quite sufficiently. With our customer engagement team, we see here that of the more than 18,000 cases created in July through September, less than 4% were closed prematurely or escalated or tagged as complaints. Do want to note that not all cases are escalations or complaints, but every complaint and escalation does come in the format of a case and a work order that is successfully solutioned and completed by the department. The percent of cases that were escalated from July to September remained constant at less than 1% of the total cases, and the percent of complaints from July to September remained constant at 3% of the total cases created. I do want to make note here that we have combed through the data and are confident with the level of accuracy provided that in September of 2024, the SLAs did decrease due to a glitch in our ATL Serve, which is our CRM for the cases. This is documented vis-a-vis AIM and provided some difficulty in closing out work orders that were connected to cases. However, I'm sure the committee is aware that the city is transitioning to a new CRM known as ATL Connect, but in industry known as Microsoft Dynamics. I do want to point that out. In our route performance, this is specific to Rubicon. Solid waste team consistently exceeded the goal of 85% from July to September 2024. Tablet usage increased by 4% from July to August. The total number of solid waste routes completed in July was over 1,400 out of 1,463 routes. That's a 99% completion. You will notice in August there was also a 96% completion. In September, a 95% completion. We're proud to say that the adoption of technology throughout DPW, specifically by our frontline workers, has been going quite well. Moving over into our solid waste services more specifically known to most as our curbside and trash pickup. We handled nearly 12,000 cases in special ops for this reporting period. 90% of the cases resolved this quarter. The top 4 cases involve requests for replacement carts. We received over 3,400 requests per month to replace damaged or stolen trash carts. We are working to identify the proper assessment management software to track the life and maintenance cycles for trash carts. Entities that we already have a relationship that we are exploring: Rubicon, Asset Works, and Maximo. The solid waste performance metrics continued. The total number of solid waste cases decreased from July to September by 15%. I'm proud to say that DPW closed 94% of all solid waste cases from July to September, which remained constant through fiscal year 24 to quarter 4. 78% of all solid waste cases were resolved within SLA. This is a 6% decrease. We not only call out our wins, but areas for improvement, but there is a correlation between the decrease in the total number of cases created and the decrease in percent of cases resolved within SLA. Continue with our suite performance team. These are our officers that are in field regularly. DPW closed 77% of all suite cases from July to September. That was a 4% decrease. 52% of all suite cases were resolved within SLA. This is a 1% increase from previous quarter. Again, there is a correlation between the decrease in the total number of cases created and the decrease in percent of cases resolved within SLA. Proud to say that our suite officers identify 13% of total cases this quarter while canvassing. That is when they're actually in your particular districts, their assigned areas. This is a proactive measure of capturing cases and opportunities within the city. This remained constant from the previous quarter. Moving on to bulk collections overviews, or overview. We handled over 11,000 cases this reporting period, averaging 177 bulk collections per day. Very proud of our crews. They are collecting far more households and more tonnage than the outside contractors we used during the pandemic. Again, showing that our resources and that our committed laborers can do a stand-up job when given the opportunity. Bulk collections collected 1,520 tons this quarter, which is 20% more than last quarter. Moving on to KABC, Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission. During this particular quarter, KABC hosted 32 community cleanups, including 795 volunteers and 2,859 volunteer hours. Over 35 miles were cleaned and more than 10.5 tons of trash were collected. Some of the volunteer groups, sorry, need to bring up that slide, apologies. Some of the volunteer groups from this quarter included the following: NPU Trash Bash teams, the Chad Livesey Project, and the Sylvan Hills Neighborhood. I'm proud to say that the partnership between public and the private sectors represented in this particular initiative is strong and continues to yield positive results. Moving to the Office of Fleet Services. This particular slide covers total hours spent maintaining vehicles equipment by department. The chart demonstrates the number of wrench hours or time hours and the percentage of time by department spent servicing equipment. The total wrench time and hours was over 22,000, to be specific, 22,271 hours. Quarter on quarter, the wrench time hours increased by 21%. Of all departments, 4 of them represent more than 75% of maintenance hours. APD coming in number 1, DPW number 2, Fire Rescue number 3, and Parks and Rec number 4. This slide is the number of completed repairs by department. Fleet completed, 7,963 repairs, a 10% increase from the previous quarter. Mission critical vehicles include emergency vehicles, fire trucks and patrol cars, and sanitation vehicles, which is our garbage trucks. Turn the page here. This particular slide covers fleet vehicle replacement program. Fleet received 38 more vehicles and equipment this fiscal year than in the this quarter than in the previous quarter. This slide covers the purchase of new AFRD fire trucks. The Atlanta Fire Rescue Department added 6 more units to its fleet this fiscal year. Fleet Service received 3 of the new units represented here on this slide. Special thanks to Mayor Dickens, CO Burks, and CFO Bala. An ordinance has been approved to acquire 11 new fire trucks for Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. Given fabrication time, the additional vehicles could arrive as early as November of 2026. Or as late as November of 2027. We'll do everything within our power to drive the escalation and receipt of those vehicles. Our safety division covers our training and performance metrics. Total training hours increased 5% throughout DPW. There were 150 students for general safety, 126 for flagger training, and 300 for defensive driving. Our finance, this is going to be our department financial snapshot. The Department of Public Works remained within budget for Q1 with the spending level of 25%. Both solid waste services and the general fund, special operations to be more specific, had expenditures of 23% and 21% of the allocated amounts respectively. Fleet services expended nearly $10.6 million, or 30% of its $35 million budget. The increase for this period is primarily due to commercial repairs. The water and wastewater, the Department of Watershed Management Fund street sweeping program, managed within DPW, had expenses totaling 15%, which were within budget. Moving to our special projects and events. Talking of Operation Clean Sweep, which is an initiative that have been going on for more than 2 years within DPW, the city. It's an ongoing initiative, clean, clear, and delitter designated areas and neighborhoods throughout the city that have been plagued with debris and illegal dumping continues. Community volunteers assisted in collecting 21.6 tons of litter and serviced 208 miles of roadway this quarter. Our dedicated Operation Clean Sweep staff cleared 12,024 illegal dumping sites, serviced over 64,000 receptacles, and 1,230 right-of-way miles. Speaking to some of our special events, as we all are aware, as I mentioned the last time I was in front of this committee, we did host a successful job fair in partnership with this committee, more specifically Chairman Lewis, but we're covering it in this particular quarter. Would like to note that our focus was to fill vacancies, particularly in fleet. We started out with over 50 vacancies. I'm proud to say that we're down to four today. Also in September, the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission organized a wildflower beautification project in front of Mosley Park on MLK Drive. The planning efforts were led by DPW horticulturist Nancy Algard and involved volunteers from DPW, AT&T, Keep Atlanta Beautiful. Want to note here that we did hire a horticulturist, I think it's been not quite 6 months ago. Those efforts have yielded great results. Therefore, we have moved forward to hire a landscape architect and a gardener to participate in these efforts across the city. These efforts are managed by DPW's newly formed, now about 6 months in the making, project management team, which consists of 3 project managers, 3 project coordinators. Also in September, the DPO organized a series of seminars to equip City Hall and frontline staff with essential financial information for retirement planning, focusing on engaging in the whole person. Something that we've been talking about for some months now is taking care of the whole person. We want people to show up and show out from a performance perspective. We have to make sure that they are equipped in all ways to do that. Recognizing our frontline heroes, Special Operations assisted with the cleanup efforts after Hurricane Helene, street sweeping, tree trimming, tree removals. Special thanks to those who worked overnight and continue to rise to the occasion. At your bottom right, you'll see our Hartsville land tree cleanup efforts. As we come to the conclusion here, I do want to share with this committee that you see quite a few of us here today. We do come before this committee with a heavy heart. We did lose one of our members, Mr. Jatarvis Cooper, over the weekend, Special Operations, 36 years old, was on his way walking to work, had not made it there. Also, Mr. Stanley Fluker, a former supervisor, retired with the Department of Public Works. And these are individuals who well known and cared for within this department, and simply want to recognize them. More details to follow to this committee as to arrangements. I've shared some of that already, but thank you again. Prepare for any questions or additional dialogue.
And thank you for that, Commissioner. Thank you for the report and for the entire thing, and every condolence, every prayer in the world to the family of Mr. Stanley Fluker and Mr. Jatarvis Cooper as well. Any questions from my so we have the first question will come from Councilmember Howard Shook, who is there.
So, Commissioner, you've been here a minute now. Illegal dumping is just a scourge that we keep chasing after, but we never catch up. It's just, what do you see? What do you think we need to do in order to move the needle instead of just treading water? I mean, we need to. It's been my pet peeve that we never seem to write citations. We never seem to arrest or prosecute anyone, which obviously just encourages these people to do more of the same. I mean, it's just free. You can just dump your trash wherever, whenever. Just what are your thoughts about how we move the needle?
I do want to say more specifically that for the first time in my tenure in DPW, as of, I think it was 2 weeks ago, our sweet team was fully staffed. I'm going to look to our manager who's in the room. Is that correct? 2 more positions? Anyone in the pipeline? Okay, so 2 more positions with 2 persons in the pipeline. And so I believe that in order to really address a problem, you have to make sure that you have proper resources to navigate those waters. So that's part 1. Part 2, the reason that we have moved our QA/QC team to work in conjunction with our SWEET team, because we believe there's opportunities as they collaborate and engage to attack this problem. So we have our QA/QC officers, when time permits, patrolling some of the more frequent areas where we know that illegal dumping is going on. Additionally, we have had partnerships with particular council members and their districts where they have helped to identify some of the problem areas. Our cameras, our mobile cameras, have acted as a deterrent. As our Fusus comes online, which allows us to more readily assess that footage that's coming in, would allow us to be not just proactive, which are some of the efforts I mentioned before, but to properly react to offenders. These are some of the things that I believe, help us move the needle, but we are continuing to look for opportunities. We acknowledge that it is an issue, it is a problem, and the department is dedicated to trying to navigate and move forward. QAQC, because of promotions within the department, as of, I think, the 21st, will also be back to full staff, right? Right now, we have 5 QAQC officers that will be working in conjunction with our SWEET team, specifically to focus on ways in which we can properly reduce illegal dumping.
So you're too shy right now, Sweet, but then how many filled positions are there?
Total for the SWEET team, 1 manager, 2 supervisors, and I believe around 10 officers per supervisor. Yes.
All right, well, that suggests to me that that's probably not enough manpower to win the war we're trying to fight here.
Mm-hmm.
But then, the cameras are supposed to do the work of, I don't know how many human beings in terms of, catching people. But what good is a camera if, you see somebody pull up, you get the license plate, you watch them dump their tires, but nothing happens?
Certainly agreed. Our command center is not running at present a 24-hour operation. However, we did identify previously 2 officers that could potentially watch those cameras on a reoccurring basis beyond our regular operating hours, rather than reviewing the footage the next day. So these are some, again, some opportunities. We recognize it as an ongoing issue, and we are taking some necessary steps, trying to be innovative and creative in our thinking as to how we help to reduce it properly.
All right, well, I'm hoping that, you'll be bringing us some happier news about altering, the bad behavior of these, repeat illegal dumpers. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Warren, before we go to you, I don't want to take the chance to miss this. Councilmember Shook just said that we don't have enough manpower in SWEET. I know we doubled the employees since we've been elected. It's time to double one more time. And he feels that way. So when we come to budget season next year, when you have Councilmember Shook saying that, and you have me saying the same thing, it's time to double. So I know we doubled one time. I've been yelling, let's double SWEET, because we had 12 and 10 when I got elected. We had 22. So it's time to double one more. Let's get to 48. And so thank you for that. We can go, Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation. Don't really have any questions on that. Just have a favor to ask of you. If you would do me a favor and check with your team on the outstanding charm invoice from July. I know that Watershed has paid theirs, but they're bugging me about it. And I've talked to CFO Bala, but I figured since you're up here, I'll ask as well. So if you could do that and let me know, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you,
sir.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I'm going to go through a few sheets. I'm extremely excited about this report. Once again, I typically don't get calls from council members in other cities, but the council members in Hateville and East Point, we share districts, and we've been able to keep the gateways clean to the other cities in our area. So on page 17, when you talk about time spent by the department and on the maintaining vehicles, this is a huge deal to us, to me as a committee member, because one thing we've always been asking was about the repairs and about the vehicles for different departments. So you were able to break down the specific hour spent on vehicles in departments, and I didn't want this to go unnoticed.
Absolutely.
I just didn't want, you got Watershed, Aviation, Parks and Rec, Planning, ATL, DOT, and APD. APD, you did 6,066 hours on vehicles. And so I just wanted to make sure we talk about the time, like that's a different level of efficiency, and that way we can see it in the city. The SWEET performances. So is the canvassing, is that new, and is that because we've been able to expand?
It's not new. However, expansion does play a part in the areas that we're able to cover. The other thing about it is that as you expand any team, there's a proper measure of training, bringing people up to speed. I'm proud to say that our suite manager and supervisors and some of our tenured members have been doing a good job of properly bringing others that have joined that team up to speed.
The next page I was going to talk to you about was the training performance metrics, right? So that it goes hand in hand, 576 total training hours. And that's new hire safety trainings. That's certified defense drivers. That's certified flagger trainers. So just to see, that's a level of intent, level of intention that I haven't seen since I've been here. And so I appreciate seeing that. But with the suite officers doing canvassing, are you seeing an uptick in amount of cases reported?
So the idea is.
You said yes.
Yes, but one of the things that we hope for, though, is that those proactive measures would drive down not case count, but reported cases.
Yes.
Meaning that the officer actually creates the case rather than someone calling in.
And I think that's helped me in my area because I've seen some areas be cleaned that folks have not reported, and they was like, "Oh, the city's doing their job." And what I mean by that, if you have officers who are riding past something and they see something, they're saying something about it. So I truly appreciate our suite officers for taking on that extra part of their job and canvassing that. Thank you for that.
And this is our manager, the actual manager of the suite team.
Can I have your name?
Hi, my name is Ebony Jefferson.
Now, thank you, Ms. Jefferson, for the extra hours and for adding that extra portion to their job. Tell them it's much appreciated, and we see it in the communities. The solid waste route performance.
Yes.
And so every month from July, we were at, it looks like it's the other way. I'm looking at the tablet utilization.
Yes.
But you're saying that every month it went from 95 to 96 to 99, or how did it go?
So let me get back to that slide. What particular
Page
slide?
8.
Page 8. So what we saw that 99% for July, 96% for August, and 95% for September. So what you see is a decline. However, I do want to add that we've been on a hiring blitz within the department. And so as we bring in new members to the department, sufficient time to train them up and acclimate them to the systems of the department is required.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. The contractor evaluation score.
Yes.
So I know the red line is for 70, and is there any kind of way we can hold our contractors to a higher level? I think the passing score of 70% is a low bar. I remember growing up, you make a 70, it's C, it's still a low bar, right? It's lowest bar you can hit. So if there's any kind of way, because we're paying extra money, we're taking dollars out of the city of Atlanta, that we could be employing people who are going to get the training and be with us for 20 years and a pension and contribute differently. So if possible, there's a way we can boost that up to 70 to 80. We want B students at least. If
Absolutely.
We're contracting with you, we at least want to contract with B students plus. And was there a reason that the contract was suspended?
So it did expire, and we were in conjunction with Department of Watershed Management at that time. We've since corrected that. However, what I do want to note here is that DPW took a significant step in our efforts to reduce the dependency on contract labor that was really born out of COVID. In our efforts to continue to bring on the best and the brightest of Atlanta, we certainly believe we have that within the DPW ranks. And as we train them up and get them acclimated again to our systems of operation, our frontline workers show up and show out. And so we made a step to try to cut that in half in relation to our dependency on contract labor. Now, maintaining partnership, of course, because you never know when you may need that particular engagement. But we feel very confident in our efforts thus far with our internal staff.
And so I want my committee members to know, especially my financial buddies, to know that would mean is that your budget, your departmental budget may go up, work expenses, because of the employees and doing extra hours. But that also means we get to move, or we should look to the next budget cycle to removing some of the funding or some of the support some of the contracts that we contract out, and we can bring that back in-house?
Absolutely. Our goal within the department is to give the people in the city of Atlanta an opportunity to work for the city. There is no greater service, in my opinion, than civil service, and we've been very successful in finding folk who want to come and work for the Department of Public Works. You've often said, if a person wants to work on the back of the trash truck, give them an opportunity to do that. And we certainly want to continue to do that.
This Monday, I don't know if you're going to be happy or upset with me because I'll be dropping 2 new pieces of legislation. One, to make it to where, because the one thing that's been stopping folks from being able to work for the city of Atlanta is the one thing that didn't stop our new president from getting elected, and that's the open cases. And so I'm going to be dropping legislation to remove the city of Atlanta background check for open cases so that a person can work on the back of the trash truck if they have a open, smaller charge. And so I'll also be dropping legislation to look at certain positions to get weekly pay. I know we've been talking about that for a long time, but when you talk to our employees in critical positions, they're looking, they need a check every Friday. And so I'll be dropping both of those 2 legislations this week, so to help them even more. But thank you again for this report. Do I have anything from my colleagues? I had one more note I wrote. Since we've staffed up and we see how efficient we've been, I just wanted to say all of our departments need to look at staffing up, filling the open positions. And if there are other positions that you see ways to grow, please don't be shy in letting us know before budget season comes, because we got about 7 months to prepare for the next year. Thank you again.
Thank you, and special thanks to this committee. You all have been very responsive to our request. You've been very vocal about ways in which we can improve in your districts, and our commitment is to continuous improvement. So we welcome the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more report today. I feel good. We got blue ribbon. We got the blue ribbon. Dr. Jabari Samama, a Lincoln Knight, Lincoln University, Jefferson City in the house right now. And so if we can get there.
Morning, council members.
Good morning.
Austin Wagner, Deputy Chief of Staff to Mayor Dickens. So we got the pleasure of being here with Dr. Jabari Samama, and excited to bring you this update on community access media. Obviously, it's been a long road, but one that we hope is coming to a close, or maybe I shouldn't say a close, but onto a new, I think, more exciting road for the future here. So we've made a lot of progress. I think you mentioned earlier, Councilmember Lewis, about we've had some community meetings, had some good feedback there, and some good engagement on what the future looks like. So we've had a lot of meetings with the Blue Ribbon Committee, and I'm going to let Dr. Samama talk about a lot of those. But just know that we're coming close to those recommendation periods. Our expectation, and you heard the comments about the recommendations, is that Dr. Samama will provide those to the mayor's office, and of course we'll provide a copy of those recommendations to City Council, and at that point will be public. Of course, it'll be on the administration, of course, at that point to then, move forward with those recommendations and implement in the way that makes the most sense. I don't imagine anything in this document is going to be counter to what we want to do, but hopefully we'll give a roadmap for some quick turnarounds and progress, building on the progress I think we've already made during this time period, but hopefully quickly moving forward so that we can get to a more permanent situation here for the future, and something that I think is going to really make Atlanta proud, make the community proud that we've done this. So I will, I think, leave my comments there. Obviously, we'll be around to answer any questions there, but I know I want to give Dr. Samama the opportunity to talk about the updates from the committee and what his plans are moving forward. And just to state, obviously, moving forward, our agreement with Dr. Samama was for these recommendations. I don't believe that Dr. Samama is necessarily going anywhere or has plans to go anywhere, and will be a part of our process going forward in some capacity. So we're excited to have him around and be a part of this. He's definitely assisted and been a great asset to the city, obviously throughout his entire career, but especially in this process right now has been a great help. So without anything more from me, Dr. Samama.
And Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for answering the questions that were asked earlier. I think you were able to answer a lot of those up front.
Okay, great.
So,
Dr. Spallman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, and thank you, Mr. Chair, personally for being patient with me as I've experienced some challenges. I appreciate your prayers and your sensitivity, and we wanted to make this presentation earlier, but you were sensitive to my situation. I really appreciate that. I also want to thank the mayor for his leadership here, certainly his patience and his sensitivity. And I want to thank all the members of the Blue Ribbon Committee. The Blue Ribbon Committee is a dedicated group of about 9 community people who are volunteering their time. And a couple of them don't even live in Atlanta. One lives in San Antonio, one lives in Brooklyn. But you know, with the internet, you can have the best minds and the best expertise, and you don't have to be land-based or landlocked anymore. Wendy Williams, who is the general manager of WCLK, the jazz voice of the city for the 70s, has been one of the dedicated members of the Blue Ribbon Committee. I'm not sure if others are here or not, but I want to thank them for all of the hours. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that you still have citizens who want to volunteer and give their time for the people of Atlanta to make sure that the people of Atlanta's needs and concerns are addressed and that Atlanta can have the best program possible. In addition to the 9 volunteers, we also had a 7-person youth council that worked with the Blue Ribbon Committee. And this was a group of young people, some college students, some students who are out of college or recently out of college from Spelman and Clark Atlanta University and Georgia Tech and Georgia State. And they all came together too and volunteered their time. And I asked them to work on something very specific for us, and that is how to get youth better engaged with the community access program. And their recommendations are coming in this week. They've met countless hours as well. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge how much community input, how much volunteer input, how much expertise, and how much people who have been involved love this program and love the city and want to see it meet somewhat of its better days in the past, which Councilman Lewis, my fellow Lincolnite, who said he wants to see as well. So could I see the first, could we move to the first slide just for a second?
I think we have a clicker for
I
you.
control that. Okay. Okay. I'm sitting here thinking that somehow this is going to move forward magically when I
got
control
you.
it.
You can bring up Miss Wendy Williams with the famous name to help you too as well. I was just messing with you. Thank you, Mr.
Well, certainly WCLK has missed no steps, so I'm sure she could help us here.
We've been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Matt Westmoreland and the Honorable Councilmember Michael Julian Bond.
And he comes in right on note because I'm about ready to mention him, or at least mention his family. I just want to really, really quickly take us back to 1979 because the city council, just like this city council, before I was on the city council, I was barely out of high school in '79, but the city council of the time, led by Michael Julian Bond's uncle, James Bond, decided that they would work together to bring the best and the biggest community access program in the country here to Atlanta. So they spent the entire 78, 79 putting together an ordinance, and out of that ordinance came an award of the cable television franchise to Cable Atlanta in 1980. Now, Cable Atlanta wasn't Time Warner, and it wasn't Comcast. It was not a really big cable company. It was most successful in Canada. But one thing that Cable Atlanta had that these other big companies didn't have was strong tradition of community engagement and community access. So Councilman Bond and other council members at the time told me that while they believed that Cable Atlanta would be able to do the job, they were primarily impressed with their commitments to community access. So that's important to know and for me to say, because the whole the whole cable franchise agreement was really based on these commitments, these community benefits commitments on the part of Cable Atlanta. Ensure, you know, the neighborhoods would be wired. There were provisions to wire the south side and the north side at the same time. But the thing that really won that franchise for Cable Atlanta was its commitments to public access, government access, and educational access television. And then what did they do? I was in Washington, D.C. at the time. They found me and brought me back home to run this program. So in 1980, in my 20s, I came back to get this program started, and I ran it for six years. It was just a concept on paper then, and we built it out, 5 studios, thousands of trained community producers, and ran it all the way to 1986. And in 1986, we developed a community media corporation, nonprofit community media corporation, which has a great name, People TV. And People TV operated continuously from 1986 to 2023, and then ran into some issues around that time. I mean, there were issues before then, but the city was patient and stayed with them and tried to work through issues. But the decision was decided to end the contract in 2023. And there's been no operator of community access in this city for the most part since 2023. And the channel shortly thereafterwards stopped receiving programming as well. And so this is where we find ourselves today, where the channel hasn't been operating and the program hasn't been operating, and the community access that we once knew is no longer the case, but it's not going to remain that way. So on July 24th, 2024, Mayor Andre Dickens launched the Blue Ribbon Committee, and he asked me if I would head it up. And I agreed to do it. And there were a number of objectives that we wanted to do, and I'm going to give you a progress report on each one of them very, very quickly. Number one, wanted a plan to reopen the community access channel. We have a plan, and we're well on our way down the road to doing that. Wanted to identify a community studio space, even on an interim basis, where young people, seniors, others, the community at large could go in and could learn how to begin to put together community-oriented programming. Wanted us to recommend a permanent operating structure and operator. Wanted us to do a section on how we can better engage youth. You know, one of the things about some of the producers who were kind of around during my days and around during the People TV days, there's a whole new group of young people and youth now who are doing podcasting and all types of innovative things on different platforms. And we wanted this new iteration of community access to be for everybody, but to have a real strong suggestions and recommendations and programs on how to engage youth. So you're going to find that in the proposal you receive, Mr. Chairman and members, in a very short period of time. The mayor also wanted a recommendation on the budget. I think we all agree that the budget has been what the budget has been, but it probably wasn't sufficient to operate the kind of program that the city says that it wants. And then also to speak to an oversight mechanism. So when we submit our proposal to the city that you'll have access to and the public will have access to, all of those areas will be addressed, and they'll be addressed very, very specifically, very concretely. They'll be operational. They'll be not pie in the sky. There'll be things that can be done. And just a quick summary on the dates ahead of us. Starting with us today, we're here, the Blue Ribbon Committee briefing. Tomorrow is our next to last Blue Ribbon Committee. So I told Wendy and I told the others who were volunteering, we're not going to keep you forever. We're going to do our work in 6 months. This committee is going to sunset and we're going to make our recommendations. And we're following that time schedule. So that, the November 13th will be next to our last meeting. APAB has graciously invited me to present to them on Saturday. I'm going to be there. And then the mayor's office briefing, and I'm certainly open to doing another briefing with City Council around the middle of December, and then the final report will definitely be in before the end of the year. Just some of the progress quickly. We've had lots of community engagement. Lots of community engagement. On October the 3rd, for example, Councilperson Boone, working with the mayor's office, co-sponsored a briefing at the C.T. Martin Center in her district. It was hundreds of people. I mean, I don't know how she got that many people out, but it was just full of citizens excited about wanting to be part of this. Some of them remembered it. Some of them remembered the Community Technology Initiative, but that was on October 3rd, October the 10th. We did a special briefing, open discussion with the Public Access Producers Association. I think you heard from a representative of that association earlier, but we spent a whole, as long as they wanted to meet, we met. And then on October 17th, in association with Councilmember Bond, we held a community engagement meeting at Friendship Baptist Church. That too was very well attended. We've been meeting with any and everybody who wants to meet, including Clark of Atlanta University. And then I mentioned on November the 16th, which is this coming Saturday, I will meet with APAB, the consortium of neighborhood planning unit leaders, and I will seek their input. In fact, we have one of the leaders of APAB who's on the Blue Ribbon Committee, so that'll be good as well. So I hope to see him Saturday. Some of the progress is in September, around September 15th, we ordered all of the playout equipment to get the channel up and running and functioning, as well as all the equipment that we were going to use in the neighborhood and community-based studios to begin our training, to begin our work and our engagement with the community in creating community-oriented programming. Its progress, Councilman Westmoreland, is progress getting that through the city. I had forgotten, I'd been away from the city a few years, and I forgot just how long it takes to really move things through purchasing and making sure it's all done right. But I guess it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that I enjoyed the reminder of how long things take. But back in September, we put those orders in, and the staff was diligent in doing it, but then it goes through a process that has to have different levels of approval, and then the vendor has something missing. There's a piece of equipment on back order. But my initial thought was that we'd get this equipment in quickly, and maybe even September or October. But it's all in, it's all ordered. Most of it has arrived. There's some of it that's not arrived, but I think you would feel good to know that all the equipment has been ordered and virtually all of it is here and ready to go. On November the 8th, which is last week, and we've been working on this for a long time, and I want to acknowledge Mr. James Pound over here, who is the broadcast engineer for the Channel 26. He's worked with us in developing a website that allows any member of the public to go to this website, register as a public access user, and also upload a file to go into storage, eventually to be scheduled. They can request a time to schedule. For example, if they wanted prime time on Wednesday, they could request prime time on Wednesday. Now, that's not easy to build something like that from scratch, but Mr. Pound, working with me and working with others on the Blue Ribbon Committee, has built that, and it works, and it's functional. We've not opened it to the public yet because we're still testing it with the staff, and we will make sure all the kinks are out. I think Mr. Pound will tell you that it's working like it's intended to work, and we probably could go ahead and open it up, but we want to be sure that when we open it up, we don't want it to crash or we don't want it to go down, but it's built, it's ready to go. And according to my progress report here, I am saying to you, and Mr. Pound verified it this morning, that by December 1st, the public will be able to upload their video files. So in essence, what we're saying to you is that we're ready to bring the channel online, just about ready to bring the channel back online, testing it. We have all the equipment, all the automated equipment, the gateway servers. We're working with information management here in the city. It's all working well, and thus far we can report to you that it works the way it was designed, and we will we believe that December 1st that we'll be able to begin receiving programming from the public, and then on January 6th, we believe that we can operate that channel with both programming from the community and curated programming, and start that channel kind of operating on a full-time basis on January 6th. Now, a lot of work went in the back end of getting us there, but I'm thankful that we are there. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the makerspace and clarify maybe some misrepresentations that you heard this morning. There is a location, a city-owned location in Council District 3, my old council district, Councilman Amos's district, in the Home Park community. Now that park is near, and that community is near Georgia Tech, but anybody that knows anything about it is not Georgia Tech. I mean, it's an old neighborhood, used to be a working class neighborhood, and there is a facility that was just given back to the city's Department of Parks and Recreation. And we're considering that among other locations because there's space available there. There's fiber that will go into the building. There's public access transportation all around it. And it's where my office was in 1980, a couple blocks away. And it's a couple blocks of where People TV was from. So, you know, the whole, I don't want to turn this into a north-south kind of issue when we're going back to the original site, the site where People TV operated for 23 years, and Council District 3, the Councilmember Bond, myself, and Amos, you know, operated. That is a facility that the city has made available to this program at no cost for up to 12 months. And if it chooses to be what we recommend, I can assure you that a lot of due diligence, it will be the best location. Now, Councilmember Lewis and others, what I have done is that we need a hub, but we need neighborhood-based recreation centers that can feed into that hub. So when my final recommendations come in, and I'm not saying it'll be this location, but if it is the location for the central hub, there'll be neighborhood recreation centers that will be able to link into that hub, and community people will be able to go to the closest neighborhood center to them and be able to get their programming into the hub and onto the channel. So That's one of several locations we're looking at. We are also looking at 2 Peachtree Street, which is an interesting concept. I went down there the other day, and when you go to Brooklyn and New York and a lot of places, all of these community access facilities are downtown, and they're accessible to transit. So we're also looking at 2 Peachtree Street, and there's lots of room there. There's going to be a big community already in that building once it gets renovated. And it's an exciting concept, being right next to MARTA, across the street from the original underground Atlanta. Not saying that that's going to ultimately be, but these are sites that have merit that we're checking out. So nobody should come to you and say, we're going to the south here and ignoring, because we're still doing due diligence. We're still doing the work for the city to make sure we get the best deal for the people of Atlanta. But that's a location we're looking at. In fact, I'm going back over there later today to take another look and taking our engineer and our staff person, Ms. Sonari, with me. Now, other places we've looked at the Clay Burnett, which is a West End Arts Center. I love that facility. I think we could do podcasts and a lot of neat work there. But everyone I mentioned to you, there's been questions raised as to why we can't do it or why we can't do it now. Dunbar Recreation Center, we looked at that, looked at the Bernstein Center. We looked at Georgia Hill Neighborhood Center. I asked Councilperson Boone, was there room at the C.T. Martin Center? Love to, and all of these other entities that we looked at that were possibilities, and good possibilities, locations that I would readily, be willing to recommend. There were issues and reasons why we couldn't do it at this time and within our time frame. Maybe a year now, space would open up, but right now, all of them are telling us that there's issues there. So we're not giving up, and we'll look at any location, because if you look at our calendar, we're hoping that the maker space or the community's studio space, that we could have a kind of a grand opening around the week of King's birthday. So we got time between now and then to really finalize. But I just wanted you to know that we're making tremendous progress and looking at places that make sense. It's not just any room or any building. We have to have certain heights for lighting. I mean, y'all could probably have another couple feet in here that would do you well. You've got to look at soundproofing, and there are lots of things that have to be looked for. But I have been through this many, many times, and I kind of know what would work technically, but I also know what would work in terms of community access. So last slide here is that I showed you the categories that the recommendations are going to be made in, but there's one thing that I can tell you right now that's going to be part of my recommendation, and I want you to start thinking about it now. And I'll work with you and the mayor in making sure. We need to go back to the original concept of having an oversight committee. Now, I remember the great Steve Suits was the longtime chair of the Cable Television Advisory Board. Philip Ransom, who was the general manager of So Deaf Records, followed him, and we had several other really outstanding community leaders who chaired that board. It worked very similar to what I'm saying we need to have now. We need the operating entity, which we'll recommend specific operating entities. It could be a nonprofit, it could be Clark Atlanta University or some consortium of higher education institutions, Atlanta Technical College. But that entity will operate access subject to the rules that are promulgated and developed by the city. I mean, they can't just do their own thing. will have parameters, but we expect them to bring their history, their experience, and their expertise. So that's an entity. City's an entity that will be party to this, no doubt. But we need this oversight entity too, something that's not the operator of the program and not the city, but kind of in between. And this oversight committee could serve as an advisory board to the program and to the city, provide oversight over whatever entity, whoever it is, hear and mediate complaints from the public, so they're not bringing complaints directly to you. And I know Councilman Shook would say, been there, done that. You want another entity that's a quasi kind of creation of the city that can sit down and listen to legitimate complaints, because if anybody's denied access for any reason, you want that looked into and resolved. And you'll hear lots of complaints, but some won't be legitimate, some will be. So you need an entity to do that. And then you need an entity to make recommendations to the mayor and to the city council about how we can continue to develop this program. And I would recommend that this entity also, once a year, hold a public meeting and just hear the public in general. And that's something, obviously, that this committee could do and does do, but I think you want a citizen group that's not the governing authority doing that, and I think that's enormously important. And when we folded or closed down the advisory committee, we had no entity like that to serve that purpose. So I'm clearly going to recommend that that be a separate entity from the entity that's operating community access. So, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I've taken enough of your good time, your busy time. I'm excited about where we are. We've made enormous progress. I can see the end of the tunnel now, and I think that what we come up with is going to be different from what we created in 1980 and a little bit different from People TV. But if we can get the involvement, if the city will stay involved with this and allow us to use those recreation centers in all of these different council districts as feeder programs and feeder connections to an ultimate hub with a lot of emphasis on youth engagement, bringing in the expertise of the higher education institutions who specialize in television production training and media production training, and then the industry, the technology industry, the music industry, the entertainment industry. These are the recommendations you're going to receive in my proposal with specific steps of how to do that. And I think that if we do that, we're going to have something that's going to be the envy of the nation and something that you all will be proud of and the citizens of Atlanta deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Samama. Any questions from my colleagues? So we'll start with Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Samama, for your excellent presentation. I'm very, very excited about the reemergence or the resurgence of this valuable asset for the city of Atlanta. And I know my uncle will be pleased. He just celebrated his 80th birthday yesterday. And so he was very, very proud of the work and being a part of the conceptualization of this. I guess that's almost 40 years ago. But I think you're on the right track. I did what myself and Councilwoman Boone hosted a public hearing about this in the community. It was very well attended, and so there's high community interest in making sure that we have this rejuvenated asset for the city of Atlanta. So I'm very, very excited about it, and really interested in seeing this develop, because just in the way that Atlanta is known for its role in the transportation space, first with trains, now with planes, the same way that we can be known in this new internet cable-based visual medium space in the same way that we are with telecommunications. So I see this as the next generation of putting Atlanta on the mark, not just regionally, but potentially internationally, with the film industry here, the television industry booming in Atlanta. To have this type of developable asset, I think, is just tremendous. And just want to thank you for your presentation.
Well, thank you very much, too, for your involvement co-hosting the meeting at Friendship Baptist Church, and your father and your family's commitment to civil rights, because it was the civil rights organization that sued the cable company that allowed them to, that made them have to bring this kind of program to Atlanta. It was those suits by the NAACP and the Southern Regional Council and others. So your family deserves a lot of credit because they were involved from the very beginning.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
I'll pass it to my bearded councilmate, Councilmember Westmoreland.
That's funny. No questions, just a word of thanks. Clearly, a tremendous amount of work has gone into this, and I look forward to seeing the recommendations next month.
And same thing, I want to say thank you for the work you've done on this. I think that this year, the advancements, the advancements we made on People TV, made on this public access channel are evident from this work. I think I have one complaint about your report. You don't have you're not showing all of your work. You're on, there's no page number, but you actually gave a report to the City Utilities Committee before the November 12th, before this meeting. And so please try to add that to the report to show all of the work you're doing. And the progress continued. You talked about on September 15th, you ordered all the equipment. Imagine how I felt when I found out it was hurry up and wait, right? The way that we order stuff in the city is you get in your paperwork now, but then you have to wait for so long. So welcome back to that process. I was new to it and I learned it as well. The makers in the city, on the next page it says progress continued. I would love to work with you or to look at different centers in our community. And what I mean by that is Roselle Fan is being equipped with equipment that is next level. We're being equipped with everything that a TV studio would have, everything that a podcast room would have. Roselle Fan is being equipped with. South Atlanta High School has been equipped the same way. Thurl High School has the same exact equipment. Dunbar, I don't know if they have the other stuff, but I know they at least have the podcast and the music education equipment. And so as you move forward, and I know you want to spread out, but these branches have already been built. And so if possible, continue to do that forward. I don't know who said, you said that these recreation centers have said no to you?
Well, I got names of people who said it that we can talk about online.
Okay. Because they work for the administration.
Yeah, if they need to be revisited, then.
Yeah. So I'm just making sure they work for, all that stuff comes through the administration. They shouldn't be saying no to us for what we want to do if we equip their centers with this stuff for it. So if possible, thank you on that. And history, there's no better person they could have selected for this position. I've had the privilege of reading a book written by Dr. Jabari Samama, which gives the history of the City of Atlanta's and public access TV. So there's no person they could have chosen to do this better, and I appreciate you for your service. Anything else from my council mates, colleagues? All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Let's go, let's get it.